What's up, guys? Oh wait, let me retake that. Hey, how are you doing? My name is Michiel. I'm the lead game designer of Schildmaid MX. Our game has been out on all major current consoles for over a month already, in collaboration with our friends at East Asia Soft. Schildmaid MX is a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up with a twist. Flying into enemy bullets activates your space fighter's defense system or energy shield, which allows you to absorb bullets to power up your ship and make those score numbers go up. Pretty straightforward once you wrap your head around it, right? Well, here's the thing. Schildmaid MX is one of those games that reveals more of itself the more time you put into it. So it's easy to think you've seen it all once you've reached the end of its beginner mode, also known as Jaeger Mode. And while completing Jaeger Mode is no small feat, it's really just the beginning of what there is to see, do, and experience in Schildmaid MX. So to help you peel back the more hidden layers of the game, I've created this video about 11 things that might not be all that apparent about our game. I hope it will guide you a bit to see more of the game and give the top 5 players on the leaderboards something to worry about. Let's get into it.
Number 1.
You can reload any checkpoint in Jaeger Mode. If you've ever seen a game over screen in Jaeger Mode, you probably also clocked that you could reload your last checkpoint and redo the stage under the same conditions you started it in. That's right, you'll have the same amount of lives, the same ship power, the same multiplier figures, and indeed the same score you had when you started the stage. Now, what you might not be aware of is that the game automatically creates a checkpoint after every completed stage in Jaeger Mode and saves it. The last 100 created checkpoints in the game are saved in a big old list. And you can access this list on the ship select screen by navigating down to select checkpoint. You can order the list by date, time, stage, score, lives, ship, upgrades and more, and reload any of the checkpoints you see here. Not only can you continue an earlier playthrough that you had to abandon, you can also check for a stage in a run where things went horribly wrong and improve your survival chances and your score.
Well, that's cheating!
Not at all. Reloading checkpoints to improve your score is kind of the meta of the Jaeger Mode leaderboards. Even yours truly reloaded a couple of times to not fall behind. And you often see players in the Jaeger Mode top 10 across all systems with multitudes of reloads behind their entry. It's up to you if you can deal with the reload number on display, but everyone has the ability to reload earlier checkpoints. So doing just that is far from an unfair advantage. And by the way, this also goes for the much more challenging EX Jaeger Mode. Despite it being a far more fierce game mode, it's still a variation of Jaeger Mode after all. Just be aware you won't find this checkpoint system outside of the Jaeger modes.
Number 2.
Schildmaid MX has screen-filling bosses. If you play a first run of Jaeger Mode, game over before the end and don't reload a checkpoint, you might get the impression that the end of stage flagship bosses are kind of the extent of it all when it comes to boss fight action in Schildmaid MX. And you would be wrong. While they can absolutely form an actual threat in the more difficult modes of the game, the flagship bosses are more like markers for the end of a stage that can help you boost your score if you know what you're doing. They do have a health bar, yes, but they don't even get a music theme. No, there are actual fights against massive bosses in Schildmaid MX. These bosses are so massive in fact that they almost always appear in their own stages. Jaeger Mode has a final boss that appears after you have completed 3 attack phases consisting of 3 stages each. Krieger Mode has a different final boss that we kind of don't want to spoil for you. Jaeger Mode also has a secret boss that will appear after you have passed a certain scoring skill check. Let me know in the comments below if you want to know what exactly the skill check is. Krieger Mode adds an extra big boss that will track you down after you have defeated the secret boss. And if you manage to score enough, Jaeger Mode's final boss will appear somewhere during your Krieger Mode run as well. Chimera Mode will have all screen-filling bosses appear during your run, if you make it far enough and meet the conditions, that is. And the EX modes will have variations on the bosses from their counterpart regular modes. Have fun fighting these intimidating massive bosses. And speaking of bosses,
Number 3.
scoring tactics. Don't kill bosses when your shield is down. Whether it's the smaller end-of-stage flagship bosses or the proper big ones, when you just start out playing Schildmaid MX, they might make you a bit nervous and you likely just want to get rid of them quickly. Hit them with everything you have and melt their health bars. Thing is, if you're playing for score and want to overtake your friends and foes on the leaderboards, you're leaving a lot of points on the table. Destroying a flagship mini-boss gives you a base score of 10,000. Destroying the 2 secret bosses will give you a base score of 100,000 each. Destroying the exuberant extermination at the end of Jaeger Mode or during the other modes will give you a base score of 150,000. Destroying Krieger Mode's final boss will give you a base score of 200,000. Not bad, right? Well, those are only measly base scores. You want to have your score multiplier active when you kill these hunks of junk. And when is your multiplier active? When your shield is active, of course. So whatever you do, make sure your shield is up when the boss goes down. Hold your fire if you must, and reactivate your shield before the big explosion. That flagship mini-boss could give you a score of 100,000 instead of 10,000 if your shield is up and your multiplier reads times 10. The secret bosses could give you a score of 2 million plus 100,000 instead of just 100,000 if your shield is up and your multiplier reads times 21. The exuberant extermination could give you a score of 5,250,000 instead of 150,000 if your shield is up and your multiplier reads times 35. And Krieger Mode's final boss could give you a score of 10,200,000 instead of just 200,000 if your shield is up and your multiplier reads times 51. So the difference between killing a boss without or with a shield up could quite literally be millions. Especially versus the proper bosses, you have to be mindful of one thing though. And that is...
Number 4.
activating your shield as counter damage to enemies. Did you ever notice the lightning strike-like energy charge reaching out to an enemy when you activated your shield of an enemy bullet? No? Here it is zoomed in and in slow motion. This energy charge is not just a fancy visual effect, it indicates something. This is what happens when you activate your shield off a bullet and see the charge. You're dealing 10% damage to an enemy's remaining hit points. So for example, when you activate your shield off a bullet fired by a small enemy fighter craft, you do 10% damage to the single hit point they possess, which has no real effect of course. And since they only have a single gun, you also completely destroy its ability to fire. Now when you activate your shield off a bullet fired by a larger enemy cruiser, the following happens. The damage to their larger amount of hit points is immediately noticeable, and you take out one of its 3 guns, after which it can only fire 2 streams of bullets. Do it to an end of stage boss, or even a proper boss in the game, and the effects are even more significant. Choosing specific bullets fired by bigger and tankier enemies to activate your shield off is a nice way to soften up or sometimes even destroy these larger targets. So this is a good thing, right? Well, it's also something you need to be mindful of when fighting bosses and wanting to make sure you take them out with an active shield combo. You see, every time you activate a shield, you also destroy the gun of the enemy who fired the bullet that caused the activation. With smaller enemies that only have one gun, you completely strip them of the ability to fire at you. With larger enemies and bosses, you'll destroy their guns one by one with each shield activation. If you're fighting the exuberant extermination boss, for example, and you have already activated your shield twice off the bullets it fires, you have one more activation to go. And if there are no more elite mechas left who also fire bullets, you better make sure you finish off the boss with your next shield combo if you want those sweet multiplier bonuses for your score.
Number 5.
The higher the multiplier, the more damage you do. And speaking of that multiplier, you also probably did not know that the more you rack that number up, the more damage you do. Or did you? With Schildmaid MX, we wanted score play and survival play to go hand in hand as far as is reasonable to us. what you are doing to just get through the game should not be diametrically opposed to what you're doing to increase your score. Keeping your shield combo going for as long as you can is good to make the numbers go up, but it's also good to increase your survival chances, as you don't have to deal with the threat of a screen full of bullets or getting touched by a laser. Not too much at least. Absorbing bullets is where a large part of your score comes from, but it also powers you up, that sort of thing. It's only when you want to push the scoring system where you will have to start taking risks that endanger your survival. But more on that later. So yeah, we wanted you to care about racking up combos, even when you care less about scoring. You get that multiplier going, you'll see that over time your regular weapons will do way more damage to your enemies. In the harder modes, it's not too uncommon to let your multiplier go beyond times 50 and up. You might start noticing that the extra damage is also visualized by the size of your bullets increasing. Let's see what happens when you don't have an active multiplier. Now, let's see what happens with an active times 30 multiplier. An active times 60 multiplier. An active times 100 multiplier. Just look at the size of your shots and you're melting your enemies and even bosses. And now, it's even more noticeable when you drop your shield and your multiplier is inactive. Damn! The more difficult modes sure offer a steep challenge, but they're also easier to build bigger multiplier combos in, so you're more than well equipped to deal with the madness they contain. It's just one of the ways in which Schildmaid MX can be pushed to all sorts of levels of unhinged. By the way, while there is no cap on your multiplier, the increased related damage you do does max out at times 100. And once you get far in Chimera mode or the EX modes, that number is more within reach than you might think.
Number 6.
The true power of the B60E Greif's EX ability. We gave each of the 3 main playable ships in Schildmaid MX a difficulty indicator, and according to our ranking, the B60E Greif is the easiest ship to play with. Certainly if you just play to complete a game mode. There are a number of reasons for that. While it might have the slowest movement speed of the 3 ships, it has a nice spread shot and it fires the highest amount of homing missiles when it's fully powered up. Also, the Greif has the longest base shield time and spends the shortest period in danger or recovery time when its shield goes down. And then there is its EX ability, which is really good, if you know how to use it efficiently, that is. You might feel a bit underwhelmed when you give the Greif its first spin. The Hydra G130 fires a volley of extra powerful homing missiles. The S19 Wyvern unleashes a massive high beam. And the Greif gets just another shield? Well, the thing is, unless you experiment and discover its properties, you'll never know just how powerful this seemingly less spectacular ability is. For starters, as soon as you activate the Greif's EX shield, and for as long as it lasts, it protects you from all enemy projectiles in the game, not just the bullets you typically want to absorb. Those deadly missiles that penetrate your regular shield, they instantly vaporize when they touch the EX shield. Those lasers that burn away at your regular shield, they have no effect when your EX shield is active. You came across those sickly green corrupted projectiles that shut down your shield yet? They're equally harmless once your EX shield is up.
But wait! There's more!
Remember what I said about shield counter damage? The EX shield does that too, but without destroying the guns of the enemies that fire at you, meaning that as long as it keeps getting hit, it will rain purple lightning at those enemies. And not just the enemies that fire bullets, but the missile firing enemies as well. We even buffed the EX shield in the current release to where it does counter damage to enemies that fire lasers and green corrupted projectiles at you as well. All this means that you can use the EX shield defensively to cover your danger time period in more perilous situations, or offensively to make sure you destroy enough enemies to keep your regular shield active, or simply quickly clear out a screen of enemies. Activate the EX shield in the middle of a hectic screen where everyone and everything is firing at you, and you'll see your enemies go down fast. Or for fun, fly to an end of stage mini boss, sit in front of it and activate your EX shield to see how bad you can hurt it. Once you get the hang of the EX shield application, you'll survive the toughest situations with it.
Number 7.
Schildmaid MX changes and shows its hand more the better you become at it. So we already talked about how certain bosses will only appear during your runs once you pass certain scoring skill checks, right? Well, that's not all that changes a new playthrough as you get better at Schildmaid MX. If you put what you have learned so far into practice and destroy a third stage flagship boss with a shield up at max power, you open a second portal. Should you choose to fly through the second bottom portal, you move up on a harder route through the game. So, if you are in loop or phase 1, you will move up to phase 3 and skip phase 2 altogether, which makes for a much steeper ramp up in difficulty. You will still play 9 stages in total though, if this is Jaeger Mode or Krieger Mode, EX or otherwise. So, continuing this example, if you do the same at the end of stage 3-3 and open 2 portals yet again, you can now choose to make phase 4 your final phase or make phase 5 your final phase. If you choose phase 5 in Jaeger or Krieger, you'll play the hardest phase in that mode. Skipping a loop twice makes for a super spicy, quickly escalating run. New enemies that were gradually introduced in the next numbered phase will come out in full force if you skip ahead on a harder route. Screens will fill up faster with threats as enemy waves and tougher enemies come in thicker and faster, making for a really alarming snowballing effect if you don't take care of them fast. But taking a harder route is not just something you do to challenge yourself. You will also significantly increase the cap of where your multiplier will pick up from if you drop a combo, which can do wonders for your score. And then there is the dynamic difficulty. Every time you complete a stage without dying, the game's underlying difficulty, which works independently from your chosen mode or route, will go up by a factor of 2. The difficulty affects enemy movement speed, enemy projectile speed, how often enemies fire, enemy HP, and even stage scrolling speed. Jaeger Mode starts with a difficulty of 0, but Krieger Mode starts at a difficulty of 5. The more challenging modes will start at even higher underlying difficulties. The maximum difficulty rank is 50, which you will only be able to reach in the Endless Chimera Mode or EX Chimera Mode. But not to worry, should you die once during a stage, not only will the difficulty not go up at the end of it, during the stage it will drop by a factor of 1. Die again and it will again drop by a factor of 1. So it really goes both ways. If you coast through the stages, the game will throw you more of a challenge, as you can obviously handle it. If you lose lives, the game will take pity and go easier on you. And the difficulty going up is not just punishment as you get better at the game. Enemies firing more and faster bullets will also really help out your score, as you absorb the barrage. All of this can make playthroughs of the modes pretty different when you lock in. Maybe you've already cleared Jaeger Mode on your first try and have become pretty good at Krieger Mode. Going back to the pretty chill Jaeger Mode, it might surprise you how different it feels as you suddenly die less and open second portals. Things might even get pretty spicy and dicey in there.
Number 8.
You can practice all stages and boss fights in the game. Don't you just hate it when you're trying to progress in a mode and always lose too many lives in certain stages or in certain boss fights? Especially in one of the modes that doesn't have checkpoints? Wouldn't it be great if you could just practice those specific parts rather than just bumping your head into them whenever you reach them on your run? Wouldn't you love it if we'd update Schildmaid MX with that kind of practice feature? What do you mean the game already has that feature?
The heck do you mean?
That's right. Did you ever clock the new label attached to the first tile in the mode select menu? Combat training. No, this doesn't mean you have unlocked new tutorial content. And no, don't go and immediately pick a ship and go when you re-enter combat training. Navigate down and highlight training settings. And there, you have all your practice options presented to you on one screen. You can pick a mode, pick an attack phase, and pick a stage from all the stages, including boss stages, that you have reached in the game so far. What's more, you can toggle on max upgrades and max EX, so you start off with maximum power in the stage.
But wait! There's more!
You can also determine the difficulty rank that you go in with, from 0 to 50. It can actually be a lot of fun to experiment with this specific setting, just to see the difference. And then of course you can set lives, the starting number of your multiplier and the cap of your save multiplier, meaning from where it can start off again after a shield combo reset. But what if you don't want to mess around with all those settings?
Don't fret, boss. I got you covered.
Simply select natural preset and the game will pick your settings based on the mode, stage and what would naturally happen in a flawless playthrough. Practicing for a run with loop skips? Then pick skips preset. The features of combat training should help you to get better at Schildmaid MX fast. Use them and use them well.
Number 9.
Scoring tactics. Focus on absorbing bullets. So now that you know all that, you might just be ready to learn how you can up your scoring game and become a threat to the top 5 players on Schildmaid MX's online leaderboards. You've already learned that you need to make sure to kill bosses while your shield is up. And you also learned how to open up second portals to increase your scoring opportunities. But to really inflate your score, there is something you need to be doing. Not just at certain specific times, but throughout the full duration of your runs. Focus on absorbing bullets above almost everything else. And you should absolutely prioritize absorbing bullets over destroying the enemies that fire them, golden or not, whenever you can. Let's break it down. The base score for destroying a small enemy fighter craft is 50. The base score for absorbing a golden bullet is 1500. Leave one of those fighter crafts alone and at start rank in Jaeger Mode, set on a forward flying pattern, it has the chance to fire about 7 aimed golden bullets at you. If your multiplier would be at times 10, destroying that ship would give you 500. Leave it alone and it can feed you 105,000 points instead. What's more, the absorbed bullets will potentially count towards your streak for the end of stage bonus, netting you an additional 14,000 points just for the 7 absorbed golden bullets alone. Even if you wouldn't have reached max power yet, those 7 regular bullets would have given you 35,000 points instead of the 500 for destroying the enemy that would have fired them. And you would be closer to reaching max power and the coveted golden shield state. There is the issue, of course, that if you don't shoot enough enemies, you will lose your shield chain, and all those delicious golden bullets on screen will turn into an angry red hue and threaten your life. To prevent this, you need to target enemy types that don't fire anything or fire lasers and missiles instead of bullets, and destroy those to keep your chain going and your shield active. Other enemies that you definitely should target are those that fire suicide bullets, such as red scout drones and laser mines. Note that the S19 Wyvern is naturally best suited to this style of play, due to its focused fire and lack of traditional homing missiles. The Hydra and Greif will often just take out all smaller crafts around them when you hold down the fire button. But there is a trick to at least stop your chosen ship's missiles from flying out, and that is to tap the fire button instead of holding it. This will make it so that you only fire your energy weapons. To maximize your score and become number 1, repeat play and practice is definitely necessary, but just focusing on absorbing bullets above all else should already do wonders for your score.
Number 10.
No, you haven't run out of possibilities to earn DC. DC is the in-game currency that you use to unlock game modes and ship colors. It stands for decoration credits and you earn it by unlocking decorations, the in-game, in-universe term for achievements and trophies. There will undoubtedly be a point where you will have unlocked most of the more reasonable decorations and you have yet to unlock all modes or all the ship colors you are after. Worry not, certain decorations are repeatable and will continue to give you DC, even if you have already unlocked them previously. And which decorations are those, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. It's the ones for defeating the proper bosses in the game. So if you continue to play the game, even when unlocking the more difficult decorations doesn't seem to be attainable for your current skill level, you'll naturally earn enough DC to unlock everything.
Number 11.
You can adjust the levels of visual chaos on screen to help you out. Finally, it might just be that you're trying to get better at Schildmaid MX, but that it's all just too much to keep track of. Even though we made sure to layer and prioritize the most important objects in the game, like enemies, enemy bullets, missiles and lasers, on top of everything else, a lot is happening at all times, especially in the more difficult and hectic modes. There are a lot of particles flying around. There is smoke, explosions, distorting shockwaves, bloom, and even a bit of screen shake for the bigger explosions. The good news is, if you find some, or maybe all of it, a little bit too much, you can turn everything on and off on a case-by-case basis. And you can even turn on helpful extra information, such as outlines around the enemies, so you can keep better track of them and avoid flying into them, which is deadly even when your shield is up. Or you can turn on enemy spawn indicators, so you get extra warnings when and where new enemies appear on screen. Find the backgrounds too distracting? You can turn various layers of them off as well. Plus, you can untoggle all sorts of special effects and extra visual clutter in the game. As you can see, there are many ways in which you can make Schildmaid MX more accessible for you.
Yes, you.
Just have a look under the accessibility and video settings and play around with them. And that has brought us to the end of the video. Was there something new here that you didn't know about? There must have been, right? I hope these bits of info will help you get more out of Schildmaid MX. Let me know in the comments below. And let me know if you have other questions about the finer workings of Schildmaid MX. Who knows, I might even do a follow-up video based on your questions. We definitely did not cover all there is to discover in our game. Since November 26, Schildmaid MX is not only available for Steam and itch.io, but as a full-on 3.0 release for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S as well. The extra content, additions and balance tweaks of this 3.0 release will be added to the Steam and itch.io version soon. Schildmaid MX is also available physically on Nintendo Switch via PlayAsia, and we have it on good authority that the limited edition is getting close to sold out as of this video's release. Enjoy our game and see you on the leaderboards.